Hey everyone, Shira Lazar here. I'm talking to Dan Zarella from HubSpot, and he's a social media scientist. I've actually never heard of that one, so congrats on that title, Dan.
Thank
And he recently came out with a survey that he basically claims that Facebook users are sex obsessed. Now, tell me how you came up with that fact, Dan.
So I built a system called TweetPsych, which basically what it does is, I did it for Twitter initially, but what it does is it uses two linguistic analysis algorithms, neither one of which I came up with. Like they were concepted by people much smarter than the academics, universities, and things like that. One's called LIWC and one's called RID. And what they do is they basically analyze the words that you say and give you like a psychological profile of what you're like and what you like to talk about and whatnot. And so then I was able to take that algorithm and apply it to articles from very popular news and blog websites.
Okay.
And then I correlated those with how many times they were shared on Facebook,
Okay.
right, through the Facebook API. And what I found was that stories that had some sort of sexual reference in them were shared like an enormous amount more than the average story.
So, what does that say about all of us that we're sex obsessed
That
because we
we have
share articles involving sex?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear we have an evolutionary affinity and reason to like sex and like talking about sex. I mean, that's like the basis of evolution. And then specifically on Facebook, I mean, starting off in colleges, there's still a lot of college kids there, hormone raging college kids who like to talk about sex. And so it's not surprising at all. One kind of caveat is that a lot of people have told me, and again, there's a difference between anecdotal evidence and empirical
Yeah,
evidence.
so are they
But
actually being quoted or just linking to things?
well, so it's sexual reference in the title of the article that then that person clicks share on, and then would like share it to their friend feed or whatever, and to their like news feed, whatever you
Hmm.
want to call it there on Facebook. But a lot of people have responded that, hey, I have never seen a sexual article come through my Facebook, or if somebody sends me a porn article, I'm not going to look at it. But I think that it's a lot of them are slightly more subtle. Right, so it's not just out and out porn exactly, but sort of sexual references in general. And it was actually one of the more common elements in my study too.
What do you mean in common?
And so when I looked at the different psychological sort of dimensions or linguistic dimensions that I found in articles that were shared on Facebook, it is one of the more dimensions that's most common. So there's also the other dimensions included stuff like negativity or positivity or constructive behavior or aggression, instrument or instructive behavior like how to things like that, and sex is one of the more popular ones.
So people have to realize also that these things aren't private. If you were able to analyze them, then being on Facebook and linking to
Yeah.
these things, they're not private.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, so I don't, as a researcher, have access to any data that, the general public does not. What I don't have access to is like who shared these articles, right?
Okay.
So I'm not able to, at least not yet, or I haven't tried really, to go find the most sex obsessed Facebook user, and write an article about them. But, there's always the future, right?
So what most surprised you about your study?
I think I'm not so sure that the sexual reference thing was surprising. I think it's perfectly, expected, right? I was surprised by the scale of the difference and the fact how popular it is compared to the rest of things. In that same study, I also found that positivity is shared more often than negativity is.
That's good.
It's just so positive, like positive sentiment. It's good, right? But it's a little surprising. So if I go to like a restaurant or whatever and I don't like the service, I might tweet badly about them.
Yeah.
But you have to really wow me for me to tweet positively about you, right? So I expected to see more negativity, but it turns out I may just be a social media dork because most people like to sort of, let the good times roll on Facebook.
Yeah, and so just to give people some numbers, you found that reference to sex in these articles were almost 90% more likely to be shared on Facebook, and you would analyze 12,000 posts.
Yep, over 12,000 posts. The number's probably up at around 13,000 now. And they were shared 90% more than the average story. Yeah, that's what was, I think, surprising about that number specifically was just the size of the popularity, like how big that scale was.
All right, so to analyze your post, everyone watching out there, and your Twitter, if you are Twitter obsessed and on the site, go to tweetpsych.com. I actually analyzed my Twitter account, and I found everyone. I must say, I tweet more about media. So there you go. That's where I'll
Surprising,
end this
surprising.
one.